Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is KIFL Prime Time. We had some minor technical difficulties just a second ago as we tried to do this again. We will start Thursday Night Football. Was the first game of the week, and of course we broadcasted it. Tampa Bay defeated Carolina in a wonderfully played game. We'll take a look at the box score now, and you can see that it was dominated by Tampa. Player stats will show that Stafford had an incredible game, and rushing belonged to Jordan Howard. With the Cardinals traveled to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens. That was another game that we did in fact stream, and it was Baltimore that took home the victory. Patrick Mahomes throwing an interception, I believe, for the first time this season. But it was a game that was dominated by the Baltimore Ravens, and it did, in fact, lead the Cardinals to sell a big piece of their team. And you could see that that is wrong. He didn't play in that game. He got those in a different game. Don't know why it did that. Interesting. Following that, we had Washington play Dallas, and that was a fun game. I actually watched a little bit of that one rather than just played it, and it was a really wonderfully played game between both teams. Lamar Jackson getting the better of Baker Mayfield as the Washington Redskins walk away victorious, running the ball. Chris Carson had a good day, Frank Gore, and we'll take a look at the receiving. So there you go. Following that game, we saw the Colts the Colts defeat the Titans in Tennessee. This game heavily favored the Colts in pretty much every statistic. And as such, Kyler Murray comes out victorious over Russell Wilson. 429 yards throwing. Have a day, young man. Todd Gurley had a decent day. Not too much to write home about, but enough. And receiving Devontae Adams, Philip Dorsett, O.J. Howard, the Indy receivers go big in the win. Seahawks traveled the ketchup bottle in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Seahawks threw the ball a little bit better, but the Steelers were dominant on the ground, and in the end, the Steelers came away victorious. Gardner Minshew throwing for 265 yards, but those two interceptions ended up costing him in the end. Duck Hodges had a half-decent game for the Steelers. Started slow, but went well later on. James Conner going on 26 carries for 146 yards. Ezekiel Elliott, it was a running game in both cases, and the Steelers prevailed in that. And Mark Walton was featured in this game as well for the Steelers. On the receiving side, Juju Smith-Schuster goes 5 catches for 103 yards to lead the team. His first 100-yard receiving game of the season. Following that game, the Bills would travel to New York to take on the Giants. Well, they wouldn't travel to New York. You get what I mean. Travel to New York City, the Meadowlands, as Tom Brady and the Buffalo Bills would fall for the second time this season. And what's more interesting is the fact that they beat them in every stat except for turnovers. And one of them was an interception by Tom Brady. Interesting. Joe Mixon on the ground. Alvin Kamara fumbled it twice. He fumbled it twice. Darren Sproles had a fumble. I mean, they had butterfingers coughing it up all over the field. Stephon Diggs having a good day for the Bills as well. But nonetheless, they could not come away victorious. 0-2 for Tom Brady. Very unusual for him. San Francisco in Cincinnati in the jungle to take on the Bengals. Cincinnati would walk away victorious, and just a decent game all around. Jared Goff had a good day. Blake Bortles saw action. I guess Chase Keenum went down at some point. So Blake Bortles got in there and saw action. Le'Veon Bell had a half-decent game. We will see the Bengals and the Steelers in Week 4. But not Week 3. Chargers at Lions. The Chargers would travel up to the Motor City to take on the Detroit Lions, and they would come away victorious, 24-16. Very well played game by Josh Allen. Derek Carr had a good game as well. No touchdowns for Josh Allen, but that didn't matter as Devontae Freeman had 2. Josh Allen, actually, I stand corrected, he did have a touchdown. It just was not through the air, getting it done on the ground for Josh Allen. The Vikings would travel to Green Bay to take on their division foe, the Packers, and it would be Green Bay walking home victorious from Lambeau Field. And as expected, Deshaun Watson having a good day, Carson Wentz having a good day. That's a great battle to watch, and that'll be something that we'll look into the next time that they play. We'll likely show this game as good of a game as it was this time around. I'm disappointed we didn't show it this time. But that'll be something that I'll look at and amend for next time. Jacksonville and Houston. What a game this was. It went back and forth, back and forth. Houston dominated the game, but it didn't matter because the Jaguars had Drew Brees throwing for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill goes down with an injury on the last drive of the game on 4th down. Ryan Fitzpatrick will be your starter starting next week. So that's an interesting one there. Matt Breida having a huge day for Houston, but Nick Chubb coming through with that touchdown. And just an excellent job for them. And Marquise Brown, 172 yards receiving on 8 catches for 2 touchdowns. Having a heck of a day. Just all around incredible game that one was. So that's another one we might look at later on. Drew Brees certainly makes the team better, and we'll actually see him on this coming Thursday night. That being said, we're now on to the Patriots at the Dolphins. New England travels all the way down the coast to take on divisional foe, the Miami Dolphins. This game was fairly even, although it did come late. New England with 1 turnover that tends to be key, and Jacoby Brissett throws an interception. Aaron Rodgers, perfect on the day when it comes to no interceptions. Dolphins are able to walk away victorious because of this. So, and that's what it all comes down to. Not throwing an interception will usually win you the game. No turnovers. Turnovers can't kill you. We move on to the 4 o'clock time slots, and it was the Chiefs traveling to Oakland, the Black Hole, to take on the Oakland Raiders. And they come away with a commanding victory, 34-17 over the Raiders. Mitchell Trubisky stepping up, having a day. Jameis Winston, not quite as much. Sorry. Saquon Barkley also having a day. Dalvin Cook as well, just an excellent job for both teams at running the football, and I love seeing that. It shows that the sliders that I kind of tweaked and messed with, that it is working, that we are getting running a little bit more. Certain teams are going to do it better than others anyway, but I'm glad to see that the teams that do like to run the ball are running the ball, and the teams that have the running backs to run the ball are running the ball. That being said, we now move on to the other one of the other 3 4 o'clock games, the Saints and the Rams. We broadcasted this game from the LA Coliseum, and it was the Saints who very muchly really kind of controlled the game. It didn't seem like it early on, but they ended up controlling it. They did come away with a turnover, or they did have a turnover. It didn't come back to bite them. Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the 1 interception very early in the game, but he did come back, throw for 2 touchdowns, had a decent game towards the end. Jamal Williams, I believe, left with an injury. Raquel Armstead had a good game, picked up his first career touchdown. Zach Line, the fullback, got a touchdown, which is wonderful. Tyreek Hill picked up a touchdown. Hunter Henry. So certainly a good game all around for the Saints. Following that game, we had the Bears travel out to Denver Mile High Stadium, take on the Broncos. And it was all Broncos in the 3rd quarter, and that was enough to seal the game. The Broncos win 38-28 at home, with Teddy Bridgewater having an incredible day. 317 yards, almost a perfect passer rating. Almost, very close. 4 touchdowns, just an incredible day throwing the ball. Tyrod Taylor, not quite as much. When it comes to rushing the ball, Sony Michel had over 100 yards. I mean, this was an incredible day for Denver. Melvin Gordon ran for 97. So it's yeah, this is where I like it. Cooper Kupp goes for 138. Tyler Eifert has 70. An incredible game on both sides, or all around for Denver. On the Sunday night game, which we ended up watching, RG3 and the Atlanta Falcons, with not such a great game, but enough of a game to pull out the victory. They did defeat the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Cam Newton, just a kind of above average, slightly above average game for both. Running the ball, Latavius Murray had an incredible game. The Eagles just couldn't get the running game going, and I feel like it ended up hurting them. Atlanta was able to, and they got the play-action pass working, so that's what helped them. And finally, the most recent game that we watched, it was the New York Jets playing host to the Cleveland Browns on Monday night. They took a big lead. They had this game pretty much wrapped up in store in the third quarter. Everybody's thinking, and then the Browns started to make a game of it. But in the end, too much. Matt Schaub and the Browns fall to Phillip Rivers and the Jets. Ben Roethlisberger will be back. Hopefully, I think week 4 or 5, somewhere around there. So Ben will be back. He's the hopeful saving grace. The Brownies are just trying to make it till there. Christian McCaffrey, 12 for 44. They just didn't get the running game going like I think they would have liked to. So we'll see where they go from here. Mike Evans, though, had a great game. George Kittle, DJ Metcalf, great game all around. It was a good game to watch late in the game, but early in the game it just kind of wasn't there. So with that being said, let's now take a look at the weekly awards. So your weekly awards for the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Ezekiel Elliott, no surprise there if you ask me, had an incredible day against the Steelers, although they did come away with the loss. Raekwon Smith, I want to say, that is, yeah. 12 tackles, 1 sack, and an interception for the Vikings in their win against their loss against the Packers. That is what happened. Myles Garrett, 7 tackles, 3 sacks in the win against the Patriots. And Kyler Murray, and I'm not surprised by this one either, 429 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He got sacked 3 times, but he ran the ball for 32 yards on 9 carries in a win for the Colts. Now, as you can see, it is showing where I am offensively and defensively. We are going to take a look at this real quick. And in the NFL, it is the Colts who are the total offensive yards leader. Colts, Bills, Buccaneers, Bengals, Redskins, Chargers, Chiefs, Jags. These are all your top offensive teams, and then these are all your bottom offensive teams. But, and this is where it's nice for me, here are your best defensive teams, and number 1 best defensive team, and I'm not at all surprised by this. The New Orleans Saints, they've been incredible, and of course 11 sacks, most of those coming in week 1. And it was an incredible game. The Steelers are up here, 6 sacks, a fumble, and an interception. I think we're actually up there leading the league, and we are leading the league in interceptions. And we just traded away Eric Weddle, but we got younger at that side. So excited to see that. Speaking of which, let's check the news. Top stories from around the league, obviously all those, but here we go. The Rams will face the Browns this coming week. Charles Davis says the 49ers will beat the Steelers by 7. Well, we'll see. I like what they've done with these. They're a little bit better, if you ask me. Some of these look very nice. Obviously, surprised that they aren't mentioning the transactions, so we'll take a look at the transactions. So, as you can see, week 3, there were some players that were signed, re-signed, and so on and so on. So when you see edited in these particular cases, it's usually me moving a position or something. So let's actually move to traded. So the Steelers have traded the 2020 round 5 draft pick, 2021 round 5 draft pick, and Eric Weddle to the Eagles in return to get Minka Fitzpatrick. So they get younger in the secondary and are very happy with this. The Steelers also agreed to trade a 2020 round 2, and even though it is not allowed, it will still be done, a 2021 round 1 draft pick to the Cardinals. And they also traded Mark Walton, and in return, the Steelers receive one J.J. Watt, who they have then moved to right outside linebacker to fit the 3-4 and be opposite his brother, TJ. It's going to work out pretty well, we feel like. The Saints traded a 5th-round draft pick and Adrian Peterson to the Eagles for Michael Brockers. They also traded a 5th, a 4th, and George Fant to the Chiefs for right tackle Braden Smith, as well as a 3rd round and Austin Patzor for left tackle Taylor Lewan. So the Steelers made some moves early on going for some linemen, and this was just kind of a player-for-player swap. They were both equal in value and young players, so both teams were happy to make a player-for-player swap. So that is all of that. We'll now take a look at the games on tap for this coming week. On Thursday night, we'll see the Titans take on the Jaguars. Now, that'll be an interesting game. That game's coming up shortly. At the 1 o'clock time slot on CBS, the Dolphins will take on the Cowboys. And then at 4 o'clock, the Giants will take on the Buccaneers. Finally, Sunday night football, we'll see the Rams at the Browns. And Monday night, the Bears will take on the Redskins. So thank you guys for joining us for KIFL Prime Time. We'll now go ahead and move on to Week 3. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.